Chapter 1138, 3 chapters in a row, each of them incredible, and this one is the pick of the bunch by far. There's 4 chapters in a row as well, there's no break next week. This is the first time in the final saga that we are getting 4 in a row, and if next week's chapter is anything like this chapter, or even half as good as this chapter, then it's going to be insane. Because this is one of the most, if not the most important chapters in the entire story, and I'd say straight up it's one of the greatest chapters in the entire story. Starting with the cover, and it is Who's Who himself who is in charge of this secret base. So after the raid on Onigashima, he was able to get away somehow and gather resources and his subordinates. I don't think we know about any of the other beast pirates. King and Queen were in Udon prison, but Green Bull took care of them there, so for all we know he might have taken them back and they're currently sitting in Impel Down somewhere, and if not then they might just still be in prison somewhere in Wano, because we know now that a castle is being built in Udon where the prison used to be. As for everyone else, like the other Tobiropo and such, their whereabouts are still unknown, and most likely it's gonna stay that way since they've served their purpose in the story, so there's no real need to bring them back anymore. Although Who's Who himself is back, so who knows, maybe they will return. From this base design and his underlings, it doesn't look like he's trying to rebuild the beast pirates, but instead only his own faction, since he was a captain of his own crew before joining Kaido. I'm still in favor of us getting some sun god information from him thanks to his whole character revolving around that figure. But as for the kidnappings, I can only think of them as being used as leverage for something, either to protect himself or to gain something he wants in return. He is definitely working towards something, some goal, otherwise there'd have been no point in his reintroduction. My best guess is that these civilians he's kidnapping may be a tribute, like how Orochi kidnapped Wano citizens as a tribute to Kaido. Maybe Who's Who is doing something similar and this is a hint at Kaido's survival, although I don't think so because Orochi did it out of fear while Who's Who is a direct subordinate of Kaido. And also if Kaido was still around and Who's Who was still working under him, I don't think he'd design his whole base like this with no beast pirates branding. So we'll see where it goes. To the actual chapter now, it's confirmed Shanks and Shamrock are twins, with Shanks being the younger of the two. It's funny because Shamrock's whole existence, this guy's entire being, has been theorized about so heavily that now that it's all actually coming to light and we're learning more about him, the info that's being revealed is not that big of a shock because so many people have already had that as their headcanon for however many years. So the confirmation is more like a technicality. It's just to say that these guys are twins and Shamrock isn't just a doppelganger, and realistically it was confirmed the moment we saw him coming out of the summoning circle in the castle. Like when we finally see Shamrock's extended meeting with the elders, it's not confirmed that it was him, but it was him. Maybe, actually, there's still a small caveat. He says Shanks returned to Marijua once, but chose to live in the lower world, and we don't know when he visited, so the meeting could very well be that one time he did. I don't think so though, because I feel like it was very soon after Roger's execution, so before he even started the Red Hair Pirates, because I've always thought that the thing Roger told him after returning from Laugh Tale that made him cry was the truth about where he came from and that he is a celestial dragon. So I feel like Shanks would have went as soon as possible so he could kind of put those demons to bed. He was a kid, so that kind of puts into question how he would have made it, but maybe they straight up just thought he was Shamrock as he was walking through. Maybe they found him hiding and took him the rest of the way up because they thought he was his brother. And we know Doflamingo's father, Homing, wanted to go down to the lower world, and he did, and he wasn't executed for it, so it makes sense that Shanks would have been able to leave as well. And Loki really is the common factor between the two of them. I wonder how many other characters there are who have interacted with both brothers. The only one I can think of is maybe Sengoku, but no one else comes to mind. And Shamrock's sword has the power of a devil fruit, the Cerberus fruit. We already know of a sword that's quote eaten a devil fruit, which is Spandam's sword, Funk Freed, that ate the basic model of the elephant fruit. We still don't know how that works for inanimate objects eating the fruit. There's also the dog gun from Baroque Works, or the Tanuki teapot in Wano in Tama's place, so maybe it works differently for each object. And as for swords, I've got 2 ideas, one of which sounds very weird, and there's no way to say it where it doesn't sound weird. So that first way is rubbing the fruit's juices over the sword, but the other way, which I think it works, and this is the way I've always thought that it's worked, and that's that you take the sword and just cut the devil fruit in half using it. And the way the power works is really unique. Each head has a sword, heads can detach, and they do just that to attack Loki as the Holy Knights leave for the time being. My guess is that these abilities are the abilities of the Cerberus fruit, and this is just how they've translated over to the sword. It's a mythical zone since It has those clouds around it, so we know that for certain at least. I'm not too knowledgeable on Cerberus in the Greek mythology or wherever, but the vibe I'm getting is similar to what Oda did with King and Queen, how they use their abilities in a really weird way, but it was just chalked up to that's how dinosaurs used to hunt. I also want to know how the sword having a fruit power affects its ranking as a blade. Does the ability not have any bearing on its grade, or does it go up a grade by default? With Spandam's fruit, it's never really been a point of discussion because there's no way that he would be wielding one of those famous blades, those famed blades, but it's different with Shamrock since it would make sense if he has some excellent grade sword or something. And what would happen if he imbued his sword with Haki? Would the Cerberus become Hakified, like how Luffy uses his Haki in conjunction with his abilities in Gear 4? So would, let's say, the Cerberus's teeth become coated in Haki and its bite becomes stronger? Can he choose which part of the Cerberus's head, or whatever, heads I guess, plural, which parts that the Haki will cover, or will it simply coat everything completely like Virgo's full body Haki? If someone were to punch the Cerberus and break its jaw, would that damage be visible on the sword when it reverts back to its basic sword appearance? These are the kind of questions that I would want to see answered in a future SBS or something. There's also the parallel, not really a parallel, but the link with Shamrock's sword being the Cerberus and Shanks' sword being named Griffin. I'm 99.999% sure that the sword doesn't have the griffin fruit or something. I know that there was the Haki Susano in the anime, and that was really cool. I was a big fan of it, but it was definitely for theatrics, but two mythical creatures, so that's something, some connection. The griffin is a majestic flying beast, and yet Shanks lives in the filthy lower world, while Shamrock lives in Marijua at the top of the world, yet the Cerberus is associated with the underworld. And he goes to attack Loki. I thought they were done with all the attacking last chapter because of what he said, telling Gunko to stop essentially before now attacking himself. The thing is, their main goal is to bring elbaf under the world government, and I don't think they're aware of elbaf's new peaceful age or why Loki has changed up. They haven't even brought it up yet. The first thing they asked for when arriving in the country was, where is Loki? But they haven't asked, why is Loki like this? Maybe they did know about Loki's imprisonment because Loki went out to sea and him getting captured by Shanks. That all happened outside of elbaf, so surely they must have found out about it somehow. Anyway, they leave on a bird that Gunko created with her arrows. I don't think anymore that Loki used Future Sight last chapter, but instead the trajectory of her arrows are laid out before the attack hits, which seems counterproductive since you wouldn't want your opponent to know an attack is coming, but it also seems like they are unavoidable. And now she's making a bird. I guess she has full control over them, so then she can make them flow in any way she wants to make any shape that she wants. And as they're flying away, they talk about going after the kids first, but the thing is that with the kids, this latest generation of giants, they follow Harald's peaceful ways, so I think they'll succeed in capturing them, and this is how they find out that elbaf has become more docile in recent times. They aren't quite the force that they used to be, and this will lead to a much bigger assault. And they're already calling another member of the Holy Knights. There's not much to speculate about since we barely know anything about any other members. We got these guys from the God Valley flashback around 40 years ago, so who knows if they're still around. And back to the castle where the group has stumbled upon the giant gods who tell them it was Shanks who attacked them, and you can forgive their confusion since they are mixing up twins, and to be honest, a missing scar, as notable as it is, I think wouldn't stand out to them that much because everything else matches Shanks' physical description. It makes me look forward to how his voice is going to sound in the anime. I'm imagining his voice would be deeper than Shanks's, but not super deep. And just as we expected, Luffy doesn't believe it. We know Shanks wouldn't have done this. Luffy 100% knows Shanks wouldn't have done this. We're not even going to entertain the idea of Luffy believing the giant's words, and the god even mentions that it could be Shanks' brother, so I like how straightforward we're being about it right now. It's not Shanks, but it looks like Shanks, so logically they would think it's a relative or something. And as for when Luffy comes face to face with Shamrock, I'm fine with the idea of Luffy being shocked or taken aback by his appearance, since they are twins, but he should almost instantly after that understand that this guy is not the same as the guy who gave him the straw hat, not metaphorically but literally. And with one mystery man revealed, we move on to the next one because the man with the casa hat is now walking towards the castle, very close to it. He's shown only from behind, so the identity is still under wraps, but he's shown while Luffy is discussing the topic of Shanks' family, including the Roger pirates. So this guy, the same guy drinking with Crocus and also Ripley's husband, who looks like he's gonna be revealed in the next chapter, has to be Scarpa Gaban. Like, there should be no deliberation about this, no more doubt that the left-hand man of the King of the Pirates is on elbaf. We'll obviously get some more lore from him, which I am really looking forward to, but I also think that it will be through him where we learn what the meaning of Louis Arnault's words were about not staying in the country too long, because Gabon will have been here for almost 2.5 decades. But the more I think about it, the more I do think it's going to be a comedic reason, or at the very least something comedic to begin with, where Gabon will joke about falling for Ripley and how he started a family, so something along the lines of you will fall in love with a giant woman and never want to leave. Whether that's what Louis Arnault actually meant, we'll have to see, but I'm confident in saying that joke will come up. There's been the theory that time flows slower on elbaf. I don't think so. I think it's going to be something more along the lines of, because the giants' lifespans are so long, if you extend your stay even a bit, you'll get caught up in their way of life at the pace they live their lives, and because they age so much slower than regular humans, you won't notice the time passing because they'll all still look the same 10 years later. So it won't be that time actually moves slower in elbaf. It will be an illusion where it seems that it moves slower because the whole country ages at a much slower pace. The chapter's been really good already, but the rest of it is what puts it in the category of greatest. It's been a minute since we checked in with the other Straw Hats who didn't go to the party, and the first check-in is with Frankie and Ripley, who are checking out the Adam tree, and on it is what Ripley says is a drawing from 800 to 900 years ago, so the Void Century. She also mentions that she thinks it's a kid's drawing because in elbaf's history there's no mention of alliances between species, so she sees it as a fairy tale, I guess. But that makes me think, what do they think elbaf's history looks like? Because surely such an alliance between species would be an obvious thing to have happened. Every one of us readers is of the opinion that the war in the Void Century had all different races and species fighting side by side against Emu and such, so such a thing would feel like a guarantee, but I guess the elbaf history says otherwise. Inside the Owl Library, Saul is showing Robin the Holly text. I was expecting them to have been kept in like a really secure chamber or something, but I guess the Owl Library also makes a lot of sense because they are books, and Robin, with all her knowledge, decrypts the writings like we knew she could, and the text build upon what Yorl was talking about in the village. And okay, brace yourselves for this next bit, because this image, this work of art, has to be one of the single greatest, most important, biggest pages in the entire story, and I so badly want to say in the entire industry, but I know that's not true, because with One Piece you have to be a fan, you have to have been through this whole journey to fully understand this image and what it means, how it holds so much weight. You can't even put into words how monumental it is seeing this. Like, the mural on the tree would have sufficed and I would have fanboyed over that, but it looks like child's play, as Ripley was saying when comparing it to this. Like, how the fuck can you tell me there's people who don't read One Piece? I'm losing my voice. Don't read One Piece or refuse to read it, and they don't understand this feeling. They won't ever understand this feeling because they'll never pick up the story. Well, actually, to be honest, I don't even understand this feeling. What am I feeling right now? I don't know. All I do know is that no, I'm lying again. I don't know anything. I'm looking at this panel with all that's going on in it and I don't know what to think. And aside from the panel, there's Robin's translation of the text with 3 separate parts, one for each world, each time the world was destroyed. This is, maybe I should stop trying to describe it and just start talking about it. So focusing first solely on the mural before adding the context of the Harley text that Robin's translating. For context, these were my thoughts before I read each of the 3 texts. The treasure tree Adam is in the center, and it kind of splits the mural up into parts a bit, but above it there's a winged demon bird monster that is breathing fire. I mean, what are we even talking about anymore? There is a city on the right side, and that is surely the ancient kingdom, or maybe if the ancient kingdom was more than just one island, then this is the capital of the ancient kingdom, and I don't think it's attacking, but it might be defending the city. It's a giant serpent. Could be Jormungandr or the One Piece equivalent to Jormungandr, and that would also mean the red line isn't the world serpent, but the thing is, it's also breathing fire against this demon bird monster. There's an arc 100% the Noah from Fishman Island with a king on it. There's also what looks like scorpions to me with their wings. Animals. The moon is in this mural. There's people like giving things to it, I guess, maybe leaving tribute or something. They look like stars, and it looks like genuinely it's never looked more likely than it does right now that Enel will return to the story, because by the 2 fire breathing monsters is another ship that looks looks like the arc maxim that is shooting lightning down to the base of the Adam tree, I think, since it misses the arc. That might also be an ancient weapon, maybe Uranus with its original power source fired lightning instead of lasers. In the bottom right, there's something going on, and are they manufacturing stars to give to the moon? And on the other side, there's a full-on war taking place, and either Nika or Joyboy is battling against another massive winged demon that has the sun in its hands. Again, what are we talking about here? Is this one Emu? This thing is huge compared to Nika or Joyboy, and there's giants fighting as well, at least one ancient giant, and it dwarfs those as well. There's samurai. I think either the whole thing is depicting the Void Century, or maybe each side represents each of the two wars. There's the Lunarians, Minx, there's the Mermaid Princess, and a fish maybe representing the Sea Kings. There's a Tontata, a robot that looks like Emeth, a lot of ships and people, which further makes me think this is during the Void Century because Joyboy being the first pirate and the sea levels rising and all of that, so this is the perfect time for people to be taking to the seas. In between the Lunarian and the Mink is a whale with two people on the back. Does Laboon have a Void Century counterpart maybe? And surprisingly, I don't see any Zunisha here. The closest thing is this grey sort of thing that's encompassing the Noah and the king and the few other figures in this area. Maybe that could symbolize Zunisha helping to pull the ship, the giant ship. Honestly, there's too much to digest here so quickly. My mind is way too fried to even begin trying to theorize about it anymore, and yet saying that there's still all of the Harley texts to go. So now, if there was any time where the translation was absolutely vital in understanding the true meaning of the story, then it would be right now. And I'm not talking about Robin translating the text, well, I kind of am, I guess. I'm talking about translating the Japanese over to the English, because any differences between the scans and the official or whatever could mean a world of difference here, literally, because we're talking about 3 different worlds here. That's how high the stakes are, that it has to be translated as accurately as possible, because the text could give context to this image. So now breaking down each section, starting with the first world. The earth burned with endless flame, and in the hearts of men burned with desire. I think this is talking about the original mother flame, or at least the flame that Vegapunk's mother flame was based on, and humanity's desire, humanity's greed, a tale as old as time. From whispered prayers, the sun god rose, beckoned by the enslaved who reached for the forbidden star. This is the first coming of Nika, who liberated the people, thus the idea of him being a liberator was born. The forbidden star confused me at first, but I've realized that's just referring to the sun again. The god of the earth was enraged. With a serpent of fire they cast the world into ruin. The god of the earth is this thing here, the serpent of fire here. They destroyed the world, beat Nika, and created the red line, with the serpent of fire representing Yomanganda, the world serpent, and is itself the red line. Darkness fell, death reigned, they would not meet again. This line about meeting at the end of this verse, I think it specifically refers to the fate of Nika in each world. In the first world, Nika was defeated, and so that specific version of him is never to return. Thus, no one could ever meet him again. On to the next section, the second world. A breath stirred in the abyss. The god of the forest wove their magic. So I think this means that the god of the forest came into existence during the second world. It wasn't a thing during the first world. And the other part, this is the creation of the devil fruits, no doubt. The god of the forest who has begun molding people's desires, nurturing its devils while the sun lit the embers of war. Again, creation of devil fruits, and Joyboy creating his ultimate alliance to try and take down Emu. And Joyboy's actions here would be why some people viewed Nika as a destroyer, because he started and spearheaded this massive war. So even if he had good intentions, it would have caused a lot of damage, chaos and destruction. Those of the half crescent and full moons dreamed, yet the ones who slew the sun deified themselves. Half crescent is the D clan, and the full moon are the people of the moon and the winged races in the Sky Islands who originated from the moon. And this also describes the 20 kings founding the world government and sitting atop the world as the celestial dragons, evoking the wrath of the sea god they would never meet again. This sea god is pissed at Joyboy for creating the war, cursed the devil fruits, created the grand line. Joyboy lost the war and died, so again, this version of him, this version of Nika, was to never return, thus no one could ever meet him again. And to add on why I think this last line means that is because it further cements the idea or the truth that Luffy is his own character. Although he carries their will, he isn't a reincarnation, he is his own person. And now the third world, chaos reigns, the world drifts in a void, yet time does not erase the memory of the promised day. This is the aftermath of the war 800 years ago, where everything from that century was wiped away by Imu's order to try and silence the D clan, who won't know the true meaning of their names thereafter. But the world's liberation is still on its way. Its shadow looms as the voice of the half moon echoes through the ages, and once more the sun god shall rise, laughing and dancing. The legends of Nika and Joyboy are still around, they have not been forgotten, and Luffy will be there to fight as the third coming of sun god Nika. Guiding the world to its final act, the sun is reborn, a new dawn will break, surely this time they will meet. This is the final war where the sun god's presence will be known by the entire world, and the dawn of the world will come finally after 3 great wars, and this time Nika, Joyboy, Luffy will win. That's my initial interpretation of the text. Some things are still blurry. I do now think that the right hand side of the mural represents the first world and the left hand side represents the second world. The first text makes it sound like Imu is the god of the earth, which makes sense, but looking at the mural, this thing on the left looks more like Imu than that. So I guess both figures could represent Imu or the god of the earth in each respective war, where even maybe the one on the right hand side is the true god of the earth, and on the left hand side it's Imu who ate the earth god devil fruit. I mean, the sun god also sounds like it could be Imu as well, Mother Sea and everything, Imu, Umi and so on and so forth. And the god of the forest, I can't tell if it's in the mural or not. All of these deities were mentioned all the way back in Skypiea, and only now are they being put into a bit of context with the first world and the second world and each of their wars. And as for the third war, like the ninja wars in Naruto, it's the third great pirate war. Or not pirate war, because we know Joyboy was called the first pirate, so at least one of these wars would have happened before the OG Joyboy's time. So that war would have happened before the concept of pirates even existed in the One Piece world. But again, this third war, which is obviously going to be the final war, the war that Whitebeard warned Sengoku and the world government about in Marineford before he declared the One Piece is real. I wonder how much Whitebeard really knew about all of this, because we know he met with Roger before he was executed, and Whitebeard asked about the will of D, so how much was he told? Because the D clan are the central figures in this whole conflict, so they theoretically are intertwined with every piece of the puzzle. So Whitebeard asking about the true meaning of D may be equivalent to him asking about what is the true history. So did Whitebeard know about this when he talked about a war embroiling the entire world one day, or was he just making guesses and filling in the gaps himself based on the little that Roger did tell him? So it's very hard to close out the video after all of that, but next week, next chapter, 4 in a row, let's go. I wouldn't blame Oda if he calmed things down completely next week, because this is so much. Although getting some more information would not hurt either.